All right, let's dive right in. We're going to talk about something that completely changes how you see the board. It's the secret sauce of Grandmaster play, the art of the gambit. We're moving past just counting who has more pawns and pieces. We're going to get into why a Grandmaster will look at a sacrifice not as a loss, but as a game-winning investment.
So let's be honest, for most of us, this question, it just sends a shiver down your spine, right? You lose a pawn and that sinking feeling hits. You think, great, I'm already behind. We're all taught from day one that material is king. But what if I told you that thinking is what's holding your game back?
And that right there, that's the huge shift in thinking we're talking about today. Where you and I might see a simple, frustrating loss, a grandmaster sees something totally different. They see an opportunity, a chance to make a powerful investment, trading that little pawn for what is, without a doubt, the single most valuable resource in chess. Okay, so this gets us to the core philosophy. We're talking about trading material for time. It's about swapping a static asset, a piece on the board, for a dynamic one, momentum. So let's break this down. On one hand, you've got your static advantages. Think of an extra pawn. Yeah, it's a permanent plus, something you have for the whole game, but it's slow. It might not pay off for another 30 moves. On the other hand, you have dynamic advantages. This is all about having more pieces in the attack right now. It's temporary, for sure, but man, it is powerful. It can win you the game on the spot.
And the fancy chess term for this whole idea, it's called dynamic compensation. That's what you get for your pawn. It's the initiative, the attacking chances, the sheer pressure you put on your opponent. You're not losing a pawn. You're buying threats. You're buying control of the game.
Check this out. This quote just nails it. A pawn is worth approximately 3 tempos. Now, a tempo is just a turn, a single move. So think about that. You're trading one pawn for what is essentially 3 free moves. While your opponent is busy capturing your pawn, you're developing pieces or setting up a massive attack. You haven't lost a thing. You've bought yourself a huge head start. All right, theory is great, but how does this actually work on the board? Let's get into the weeds. This is the Grandmaster's Toolkit, the core mechanics of how to make these sacrifices work. Okay, first up, the central break. The whole point here is to blow open the arteries of the board for your big pieces. The classic example is the Danish Gambit. Let's walk through it. White plays 1e4. Black responds with e5. Now watch this. White immediately plays 2, d4, offering up a pawn. Black takes, xd4, and white doesn't recapture. Instead, they play 3, c3, offering a second pawn. Black takes again, dc3. White still isn't worried about the pawns. They play 4, bishop to c4, a developing move. Black, maybe getting a bit greedy, takes again with cb2, and now the punchline, 5, bishop takes b2. So let's take stock. White is down 2 whole pawns. But the real question is, what did they get for it? The payoff is just immense. It's absolutely breathtaking. For those 2 little pawns, White's pieces are flying. You've cleared the paths for your bishops and rooks. You've turned pieces that were just sitting there, these potential threats, into active, terrifying threats. Look at this position. Both of White's bishops are now absolute monsters. These long-range snipers pointed directly at the heart of Black's position, right at the king. That is what dynamic compensation looks like in action. Okay, another killer tactic. You can sacrifice a pawn specifically to mess up your opponent's development. The biggest prize? Stopping them from castling. If you can trap their king in the center of the board, it becomes a target for the entire game. Suddenly, every open file is a firing range for your rooks. Every move you make comes with a threat, and your opponent is forced to just react, just defend, while you get to call all the shots. And then there's the decoy. This is just brilliant. You can offer up a seemingly random pawn way out on the side of the board for one reason, to lure a key defender away. Let's say their queen is the only piece guarding the king. So what do? You offer a pawn on the queen side. They can't resist, they take it. And for that one crucial move, their most important defender is on vacation. That's your moment. That's the window to strike. All right, buckle up, because this is the real aha moment. This is where we go from just understanding gambits as quick attacks to appreciating the deep, strategic genius behind them. It's about what happens when the sacrifice doesn't lead to a quick checkmate. And this is the question, isn't it? It's the one that keeps us up at night. You play a gambit, you sacrifice your pawn, you throw everything at them, but they defend perfectly. The attack just fizzles out. Now what? Are you just down a pawn for nothing, slowly losing the game? What happens then? Absolutely not. The answer is something called positional compensation. This is a much deeper idea. It's a long-term, sometimes even permanent strategic advantage that you get from that sacrifice. See, you weren't just buying a temporary attack, you were buying a better position for the rest of the game.
So what does that actually look like? Well, it can be a bunch of things. Maybe your sacrifice forces their bishop to get stuck behind its own pawns, making it a bad bishop, basically a useless, tall pawn for the whole game. Or maybe you've completely ruined their pawn structure, giving you permanent weaknesses to attack later. And a huge one, you force them to be perfect. They have to play with incredible accuracy to deal with your lingering pressure, while your game, it's just easier, more comfortable to play. Now this is the truly next level stuff. Sometimes a grandmaster will sacrifice a pawn in the opening with one goal in mind, creating a winning endgame 40 moves down the line. It's incredible. They might give up a pawn on the side of the board just so they can create a passed pawn in the center much later. And that future passed pawn becomes so strong that their opponent eventually has to give up a whole knight or bishop just to stop it. Think about that trade. One pawn now for a full piece later. That's the ultimate long-term investment.
Okay, we've got the theory down, so how do we actually start using this stuff in our own games? And maybe even more importantly, what are the big pitfalls we need to avoid so we don't just crash and burn? First, you got to avoid what I call the hope bit. That's when you sacrifice a pawn with no real plan, just hoping something good happens. Don't do that. You need a concrete follow-up. Second, if you have the initiative, you have to use it. You can't let it fade away. That means forcing moves, checks, captures, direct threats that keep your opponent on the back foot. And hey, if you're on the other side of a gambit, don't get obsessed with hanging on to that extra pawn. A lot of the time, the best move is to just give it right back to shut down their attack.
So, here's your homework, a practical training plan. Step 1. Use the 2-move lead rule. Just look at the board by move 10. If you have 2 more pieces developed than your opponent, you're in a great spot. Step 2. Try a gambit week. For one whole week, you play only gambit openings. It's going to force you to learn how to play with initiative. And step 3, study the refutations. Go find games where these gambits failed miserably and figure out why. That's how you'll learn their real limits. So, there you have it. We've gone through the theory, the mechanics, the whole shebang. Now there's really only one question left, and it's one that only you can answer. The next time you're sitting at the board and you have the chance to make that sacrifice, how much is time really worth to you?